Hi there. We're continuing on with our series Grand Conversations, and this is the second in the series. And today we're going to talk about sharing your own life lessons and experiences in meaningful conversations with your grandchildren. Now, life lessons are always, they can bring up some interesting conversations and need to be how we talk about them with our grandchildren will really affect how they receive and whether or not they learn, whether or not they learn to be fearful, hopeful, bitter, all of those things. We can influence some of those with the way we tell the stories of our lives. So as we're talking today, keep that in mind. Keep that in the background. How you talk is going to be important as to how these lessons are received by the young ones that we love. Why is this conversation important? Well, there's camaraderie in life experiences, especially as we do get older, whether it's with our spouse or a group of friends or family members. There's kind of a unique camaraderie that develops over time as we go through different things together, whether they be family experiences, worldwide experiences. Think about the generations that went through World War I, World War II. It's just those shared experiences give you a unique perspective on life. And so bringing some of that understanding to our young ones gives them a step up in their future and how they view some of the things that they will go through. They will have difficulties. They will have great experiences and great successes, but they're also going to have some moments of tragedy or moments of failure, and we can prepare them for some of that with this type of a conversation. It's also important because it builds the understanding of generational living. How what we share flows from generation to generation. And this type of conversation is an opportunity to share the reality of change with our young ones. We've all experienced many changes over the course of a lifetime that spans, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, not decades. We've seen so much and experienced so many changes, expected and unexpected. And so it's an opportunity to let our grands know there will be change. Learn to flow with change well, and you'll have much more success in life, whether it's expected or unexpected. So how do we start this type of conversation? First, a bit of advice is be honest. Don't try and share or express that there's never any difficulty in life. Express those moments of change, those moments of great lessons that changed your perspective. Express them in an honest way. Again, I would say mind your language as far as whether you're expressing it with bitterness or hatred as opposed to receiving a life lesson. Personally, I've been through enough in my own life. I've made some mistakes, but I try really hard not to let the bitterness flow out of me over some of those hard life lessons. Talk about them as a reality, but as something to be learned from, something that actually builds us and builds our character and builds our resilience, builds our courage even, builds our understanding of the human condition. So be honest and be thoughtful in the words you use to start these conversations. And then do talk about all types of lessons, good ones, hard ones, bad ones, mistakes you've made, mistakes you've seen around you in others that you learned from vicariously. Try and just hit the whole gamut of the human experience that you're comfortable talking about and prepare your grand for some of what they will experience through in life. Maybe choose, as you're getting ready to have a conversation like this, choose only one area of focus. Make some time regularly to visit with them, but choose an area of focus. And that might be, one time when you get together, you talk about family choices. What do they think about marriage and family life? What are they hoping for in marriage and family life? You can listen to them, see what their hopes are, and then express some of your views. What have you learned from being married, or what have you learned from being divorced, and how did you rebuild after divorce? What is the best thing about aging with a life partner? There are so many things that we can share, and if we do it thoughtfully, kindly, and don't let bitterness over difficult lessons flow out, then it can be a help to our grands. And again, as I mentioned in this series, they may not always act like they're listening intently, but many times they are hearing what we're saying. So don't be afraid to have these conversations. Another area of focus might be career. What educational aspirations do they have? And what have you learned about educational experiences? It's one of the things we're seeing culturally right now, I think. And I'm coming at this from a perspective of having pursued a profession and the education that it took to have that. I'm seeing now a lack of certain tradesmen in our culture. We've lost some of the trades. It's harder to find a plumber, it's harder to find an electrician, it's harder to find someone who does HVAC. And so maybe the conversation you have with your grand can explore some of the differences over time in how people look at different career paths, and open up their minds to some other opportunities or some ways that they could make a fine living and have a good business. Just look at the current time frame that we're in and what's needed, and bring that into your career discussion, and the ways that you can share life experiences and lessons with them. What about making big decisions? In the course of a lifetime, we make so many decisions. Some of them are inconsequential, in the big picture, but others make huge differences. Who we choose as a life partner, how we live and how we create family with that person, whether or not we choose to have family. One of the things that I'm seeing more and more in young people, and I'm hearing from grandparents, is how many young people are choosing not to have children. And how does that affect, their long-term life? Are they, when they decide to make that decision, are they thinking about the latter years? I've worked with clients who have no children, and many times, especially if it was a choice as opposed to, some physical difficulty that they couldn't have children. Sometimes there's great sadness and loneliness that comes with that type of choice. So just get the gears turning in your grands' minds. Let them think about things through the lessons you've learned, either by your own experience or through watching others. Tell stories. Stories work so well to teach lessons. One of the ways that you could do this and start these conversations is to plan, several weeks of lunch get-togethers. Let's have lunch together for the next 4 weeks. I have several things I want to talk to you about. Well, maybe that just opens the door for a conversation, for a fun outing, and a little, intimate time together with your grandchild. And then discuss these different areas. Pick a topic for each lunch get-together. Maybe create a tradition in your family of something modeled along the line of TED Talks. Maybe you have different family members who either record or host a get-together and talk about certain things. Why can't we do that as a family? We certainly could. There's no reason that says it has to be just on, internet or television. We can share family wisdom in whatever format is comfortable to us. So get creative in this, and maybe you'll end up with something like a family series of lessons and gatherings, focused on teaching your grandchildren. Make them an event, make them a rite of passage. We all have rites of passage in our lifetime, and think creatively and intentionally about making some of these around these conversations. And again, what if your grandchildren are unresponsive to talking about life lessons? Talk a little bit anyway. I'm always an advocate of sharing something, share a short story of an impactful life lesson that you learned, and pique their interest. Don't make it a big discussion. Just pique their interest a little bit and get them thinking, and maybe they'll come back to you and ask more questions later. And if they don't despair. Pray that they've received something from you in what you've shared, and then be open. Keep those doors open for those conversations. For an activity in this conversation, one of the things that might be kind of fun to explore would be to create a time capsule of generational wisdom. Maybe sit down and spend some time on your own writing out some life lessons and formatting them in a way that can be shared later on, and create a time capsule. Put it in a bottle, literally, if you want to, and, seal it and say open on such and such date in 2028 or 2030, and, give it to your grandchild as a gift and share it with them that way. That would do two things. First of all, it's kind of a fun gift to give, but it would also it would cover maybe the moment if we're not around 10 years from now. One of the realities of life that you start thinking about more as you get older is your life doesn't spread or reach out quite as far forward into the future as it once did. You're not thinking, oh, I've got a whole lifetime. Now you're starting to count your life in decades, and the older we get, the shorter those decades get, and that's just a life reality. So if for some reason, there's a possibility that you may not be there 10 years from now to give your grandchild some of that wisdom in person, share it with a time capsule. Make it a unique family gift. Take care and be grand.